Call to order the November Hamilton County Council meeting. Madam Auditor, can I get a roll call?
Brad Beaver.
Here.
Mark Hall.
Here.
Amy Masalamani.
Present.
Ken Alexander.
Present.
Sue Mackey.
Present.
Tim Griffin.
Present.
Steve Nation.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We could all rise for an invocation pledge led by Councilor Griffin.
So please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather for tonight's meeting, we ask for your guidance and wisdom as we recognize the responsibility placed upon us to make decisions that affect the lives of our community's residents. May our discussions be marked by respect and understanding, and may our decisions make it be just and beneficial for all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we have a long agenda, so we're going to jump right into it. Do I have a motion for the minutes?
Motion to combine regular minutes 10/16 Hamilton County 2024 budget as well as 10/16 2024 final budget adoption minutes.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Do I have a
Make a
motion?
motion to approve.
Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. And now's the time for public comments. Is when items that are not on the agenda, that you can come up and voice your, do we have any cards? No? Okay, moving on. Committee reports. President, I have nothing right now.
34, 13, and 35.
Yes, two things. Number one, I want to commend the entire county team that is a part of our ERP project that is setting to go live in 2024, especially the auditor's office, which includes payroll and all the hard work. We've done quite a bit of parallel testing, which is not an easy thing, and we have really passed, I would say, with flying colors. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
And then second to that, on November 15th, the portal will close for our appointees. I would ask council or directive, right? I assume everybody has access to the portal. They can look through, and then how did you guys want to proceed with them making decisions at our December meeting?
Well, maybe what we can do is just print out what the list is or send out the link and say this is who applied, and then we can vote on those at our next December meeting.
I think in the past we had talked about, do we want to do a discussion ahead or?
Can we do a work session before a meeting to discuss it?
They're
Caucus.
political appointments, so they would be something that would be appropriate for a caucus.
So that would be up to you guys, how you want to proceed.
Prior to the December meeting? then?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that works for me.
Do we want to plan for an hour, 2 hours? What do you guys think?
An hour and a half.
How many appointments do we have?
I mean, it's I'd say there's a better, I didn't count them specifically, 20?
Yeah, but they're not all up, right?
There was a decent amount, because we were looking at the ones in February as well, and we had one in November. I mean, so
We're looking to fill, or to make recommendations for all the appointments, and whether we act on them in December, if they go in June or whatever, we're hoping to have those selections made now so that when we get to that point in time where they can be.
I have no problem. I just thought
So,
some of them were like
there are
4-year terms.
but we do have quite a few that are actually up. So I would say an hour and a half, as long as everybody kind of does their due diligence, I guess, right, and reviews the
And we're
SharePoint
ready.
information, and then that
Yep.
way we can share. So it sounds like 5:30 for our December meeting.
Sounds good.
Can we get instructions on how to access the portal so we
I'll-
can?
I can send it to you.
Correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, highway.
We met, and the few items will be on the agenda or next month.
We're handed out the updated projects list, and that we can share that. Maybe Brad, if you wouldn't mind, I know you're out there. If you can make sure that gets circulated electronically. If you want to send it to me, I'd be happy to share it with the rest of the council. Thank you. Finance,
No meeting.
personnel.
We had a poll. It'll be later on the agenda.
Any miscellaneous comments?
Yeah, just one for me. Earlier this week, we met at Station 44. My other job as firefighter. I went and to recognize some individuals. So there was a cardiac arrest back in July. Wife's husband collapsed. She heard him collapse in the middle of the evening, like 2 in the morning. Knew something wasn't right. She had been a nurse, called 911, started CPR at that moment. CPD showed up, shocked once, then FD showed up, shocked again, CPR. But now, fast forward, 6 months later, husband has no residuals. He's 100% okay. So they got him back. And that's very rare. If people that are in public safety know, once you're to that point, especially have no residuals. But I wanted to say IU North came to recognize those individuals. They also recognized dispatch. And the wife who, had said I was a nurse years and years ago, she said, but when it's you, she said, I would have been lost without dispatch. So I wanted to make sure that we recognized them and the work they do, because on the other line, they are the eyes, the ears for those individuals until first responders arrive, and even then, sometimes they're still on the phone. So I know that they thanked them. The wife specifically brought them up, so I just wanted to make sure we talked about that tonight and thanked them for the work they do, and it doesn't go unheard, so.
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Any other miscellaneous? All right, seeing none, we're into the 2024 budget final adoption for Hamilton County. I'm just going to go through line items, 2024 council meeting dates. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to suspend the rules. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules and not read each line item?
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to accept all 140 salary forms and salary ordinance CC 1101 2023
So moved.
KA?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, do I have a motion to approve the contracts?
Make a motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, all those contracts are labeled individually, so I have to go through each one? Or goes that motion?
You just did the
You just made that
You just-
motion.
Thank you.
I would assume to include all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the complete budget Form 1?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to approve the mileage for 2024 as set by the federal mileage reimbursement rate?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to set the meal reimbursement rate as set forth in Hamilton County Employee Handbook, Section 3.2.7?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution CC 1101 2023-1, fixed 2024 tax rates?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to accept the, do I have a motion to accept the amended sworn statement of Hamilton County Recorder?
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to approve ordinance CC 1101 2023, point D, an ordinance approving the request of the Hamilton County Recorder to pay expenses of the Hamilton County Recorder's Office for the 2024 calendar year from the Hamilton County Recorder's records preparation.
So moved.
So, second. Perpetuation.
Perpetuation. I always get messed up on that one.
Second.
All right, thank you. Please don't make me say it again, so seeing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, do I have a motion to approve the Gateway Form 4 2024 tax rates?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute recess to do signatures for our budget.
Send it down on the-
Did we ever make a decision, since now this is on the resolution, that can be struck?
bring it back to order. Next item's unfinished business. Do I have a motion on resolutions CC 1004, 2023.1, a resolution of Hamilton County Council authorizing Hamilton County, Indiana to become a member of the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority pursuant to Indiana Code 367.7.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there anyone that, from the CERTA? Thank you.
Okay.
As you come forward, if you wouldn't mind stating your name. Thanks.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm Jennifer Messer, and I am the Executive Director of the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority. Thanks for having me tonight, and I'm glad to do one or the other. We can do both. I can give you a brief overview of CERTA, or we can jump right in, and I'm glad to take questions, whichever you prefer.
How about both?
Okay, excellent. Well, as many of you all know, CERTA is a statutory entity that was approved by the legislature in 2020 as Mayor Scott Fadness and others went to the legislature and asked for authority to create a group that would work on regional issues throughout central Indiana. So essentially what the legislature said was, yeah, that's really great. If you can get a group of people who will work on these issues, elected leaders together to work on these issues, go get them. We asked at that time for a funding source from the state, and they said, well, no, that's the piece you'll work on a bit on your own. So we'll see what happens. And in that time, over the last couple of years, and particularly since the COVID pandemic, Mayor Fadness, along with others, Mayor Jensen, Cook, and a lot of other representatives went out and really tried to form a regional coalition. And I'm proud to tell you that as of our November meeting, there will be 18 municipalities that are a member of this Regional Development Authority. So now what does this group do? Essentially, they try to plan, envision, and think about projects that can be impactful for all of the communities within central Indiana and statutorily, specifically in the Indianapolis, Carmel, Anderson metropolitan statistical area. As many of you all know, CERTA was the group that headed up the READY 1.0 applications and is also the group that is overseeing READY Point 2 for this area. Now, to step back just a little bit with the READY applications, while CERTA is heading up that effort and overseeing that process, it's not just CERTA communities that are a member of that process because, as you probably know, the IEDC has dictated those regions for the most part with input from the communities. So that region looks a little bit different than the membership of CERTA, but it's generally the same. It's Indianapolis as well as the donut counties, with the exception Shelbyville's in a different area and Putnam is in this area for READY 2.0. But the other thing that CERTA is very busy doing is going out and looking at federal grants and programs and money that Indiana is not otherwise, particularly in this area, obtaining through our municipalities. And I know I still work for the city of Fishers doing contract work for them, and our entities are good at, and our municipalities are good at going out and getting some of these smaller grants, but on a regional basis, we have not really historically been at the table for some of the federal government's larger grants. So CERTA is really putting an emphasis on going out and searching for those federal opportunities because, frankly, as the Biden administration pushes money into the economy and out to states, that's happening, whether we like it or don't like it or whatever your view is on that. But at a minimum, if they're going to do it, our position is we want to bring it back to central Indiana. So that's what we're trying to do. One particular grant that we're working on is CERTA was awarded a $1 million non-competitive planning grant to do an inventory of greenhouse gases for the communities within the MSA and create a preliminary plan and a strategic plan to counter greenhouse gases. Well, what does that mean? It means you go out and you spend $1 million on a plan, and then you have a plan, except for this piece. If you're willing to do that work, which CERTA was, you then opens the door to up to $500 million of grants for true projects within the MSA. So parks, trails, I mean, I could give you a two-page list of projects. Now, these are competitive that the EPA is going to consider. That grant was open to, if you did the planning work, and all you had to do was apply for the first million. If you did that work and you applied for the first $1 million grant, you do the planning work, it opens the door to the rest of this money, this $4.6 million pot. It was only available to the 60 largest MSAs within the country and the states. Only like 40 applied, of which we are one. So I can't promise you money's coming to this area for the projects we really want to do, but we're certainly going to try. And we're going to look for more. I use that as an example because it's one of the biggest grants we're working on, but I use that really as an example of what CERTA wants to be. We want to be a conduit to funds that are available that we can bring back out to this area. And then we also want to be a bit of an umbrella group of elected officials who want to have a say, along with our not-for-profits and our private sector and where this region's going over time. So by joining CERTA, there's no cost. It really is just having a seat at the table. Every member of CERTA has one vote with the exception of Indianapolis. They have two because they're both a county and a city. But if you think about that, like I said, in November will be at least 18 members. If Hamilton County joins, that'll be 19. It's not exactly like Indy has an outweighted vote in that number. But there's no money to join. Oh, and I should say our smaller communities, any community that's under 7,500 combines with the other communities of that size for one vote. So we'll have two of those communities as of November, Elwood and then also Cumberland. But all we really want is participation. We want the executive from each community to have a seat at the table, to be in these conversations, and then to have a vote on whatever projects we put forward on this EPA grant specifically, but also just as we vision what this region can be over the next 10 years. So that's really it, and I'm glad to take questions.
I have a couple, well, one question specifically. So it was stated a few times in our previous meeting that we have to participate in CERTA in order to qualify for, as an example, the EPA grant that you just referenced. And so the language that was sent to me, I went through, and it doesn't indicate that you're required. Can you clarify that for me?
No, so for the EPA grant, if Hamilton County does an inventory and is participating in the process to put forward the strategic plans, and let me step back, Amy. So quickly, as we decide what strategies are put forward, there's a working group that is comprised of the staff level members in all the communities of CERTA who is putting together this information. If you look through that, you have to put forward projects that are within the strategies that you put into those plans. So CERTA's been awarded the money for the plans. The working groups will put together the strategies that will go up to the CERTA board to vote yes, no, change it, whatever. So those will go forward. Because we chose to do the inventories at the county level, if the county has projects that fit within the strategies that were presented, because projects have to go within the strategies. If you can come up with something that fits within the strategies that have been approved, then you can independently apply for funds. Now, what the EPA has been very clear about is they are not going to consider multiple projects from the same area. They want a package and a theme to come from the communities, kind of laying out what we want to do on a regional basis that is somehow tied together in a greater theme of how we reduce greenhouse gases. Now again, if you look at that NOFO, it's 2 pages. Those projects, the listing is not exhaustive. So it's projects like those. So you can independently submit. I do think when projects go through the CERTA board and up, I mean, it's natural, that board, their staff, the staffs of those communities are involved, they're participating and contributing. You're probably not gonna have that board vote to support projects that are outside of its member communities. But you can independently apply, but the EPA has said they're not gonna consider competing. They don't see it as their role to consider competing projects.
So as a follow-up, because I think it was page 18 when it talks about the eligibility, like the criteria, right? It does indicate and describes coalition. So coalition can be two or more from a certain area. And I guess what I'm trying to understand is I hear that it's advantageous if we all come together, but it wasn't properly communicated because we could ourselves and let's say Carmel could decide we wanted to go as a collective, do an interlocal and apply. We could do that. It's not, as it was stated last week, or last month rather, that we're required, different than Ready, this is specifically on this EPA, it was stated that we had to participate in order to qualify, but we don't. We could, like we normally do, find a project like we did with State Road 37, work with the state, work with the city of Fishers, and execute. So that's the part that I want to make sure. We could, as a coalition, independent of CERTA, go and apply.
You could, if the strategy covers your project, you can definitely
Okay.
apply. I think the only thing I would kind of caution you about, but again, totally up to you how you handle it, is CERTA is out collecting the projects they put forward, and the EPA has been clear they're not going to consider competing projects from the same areas. So, I mean, you could, yes.
Okay. Not required then, to participate, is really what I'm getting
Of
at.
course not.
Okay, thank you. I
So
appreciate
the-
that.
But the EPA project or grant opportunity you shared is just one example of others that could be coming down the pipe in the future.
It absolutely is. That's what I do most Monday mornings, is I get back onto the federal grant site to see what's available because, and to be clear, this is all new work for me. My background is economic development and the legal representation around it. But as I have gotten into the grant world and as I spend time looking, it is complex, one, and there are experts who know far more than I'm ever going to know about it. But one thing I can do is go on and look at these regional opportunities. And I tell you this not knowing that it's 100% true, but in our work, we are really trying to form broad coalitions. Like IDEM, for example, is involved in our EPA grant, and they're doing their own as well. But we're really trying to get a broad desk so that we can be as competitive as possible in the projects we choose to put forward. But yes, to your point, this is one of, there's a lot of money, particularly the federal money, that is available for these types of projects. And historically, Indiana has not really, as a region, and in some instances, even as communities, gone out and gotten our fair share. So the representative from IDEM that was working with us said they were in a meeting with EPA who criticized them, although they were applying, because they said that at that point, Indiana generally is around 49th in the receipt of federal grant funds. Not entitlements, none of that, but just the grant funds itself.
So I know it was a question was asked, but while you're here, just to put it up for the record, how are you funded?
So I am funded with funds with this EPA grant, you can take up to 10% to seek other grants or for administration. And there's a certain amount of READY funds from READY 1.0 and from READY 2.0 that you can pay administrative people like me. I'm the only person, and I'm doing it on a contract basis. So that's how this role is funded right now.
So as a contract, basis, benefits are not part of the equation?
Oh, gosh, no. No.
But you
No,
do have
it's
the
a-
opportunity, sorry, go ahead.
It's an hourly amount, it's a retainer.
But you do have the opportunity at a certain time, up to percentage, whatever the grant dictates, that you could hire or employ, I should say, staff up to a certain, there was accountants, engineers, is that correct?
You can, and what we have done, because we're committed to keeping this group, I mean, there's a lot of different groups in central Indiana that are doing really great work. I mean, but there is no group like SERTA in that we are a statutory entity, and the elected representatives from our community are the people making the ultimate decision. It's not, I mean, there's a lot of people working to make sure they have the information they need, but at the end of the day, it's actually the people who were elected who are raising their hands to vote to put projects forward, plans forward, so on and so forth. So what we have done is like on the EPA grant, unless you have a background from the EPA, or I don't know how one would go about doing the inventory and planning. And I really don't even know how one would have the background to know what the EPA is looking for these projects. So we put out an RFP the same way you would under Indiana statute as a governmental entity. And we ended up retaining ERM, which is a DC-based consulting firm with a local presence, to lead that effort for us. We're doing the same with HWC Engineering here in Indiana to lead READY. And that's how I see us moving forward. I have not heard any plans for any employees of SERTA. It really is just about hiring experts to work on whatever specific project we're doing that's within their field.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks for spending the time with me before. I have a couple of follow-up questions, but for council's benefit, could you walk through kind of the mechanics of how a project would come back before council again, should it need funding?
So to make sure I understand you, Councilor Hall, are you asking for a project like?
Just walk through a
how it
sample
works through the
project.
SERTA process?
The concern would be a balance when we met. So the group applies for something, we don't want to participate. You know, I don't want to be forced into funding, or if we actually are in agreement, how does that process going to work where sort of comes back before council to get funding for a project?
Well, that is a great question, because there are no plans to come back to our communities for funding, period. Now, that said, like with READY, you know that there's a match requirement with READY. So and you know, also to be clear too, there may be a little bit of confusion because you do not have to be a member of SERTA on READY. While we are the group that's overseeing READY, that's a state initiative. And we have asked every community that's within that geographic area that the IDC laid out, whether you get to have a participant. It can be your LEO, it can be somebody from your council, it can be the person you pick, whether you're a county, a town, or a city. So while we are leading that effort, that's different. On the so there has to be a match shown with that. The IDC established that. So when projects are considered, we're naturally not going, the SERTA board will vote on what projects are put forward ultimately, but we're not going to pick projects that don't have that match because IDC said they're not going to fund them. That's not a SERTA requirement. On EPA or on other projects where there is a match, if this community wanted to participate and funding is needed, it would come back to this body to determine, yes, we want to be a part of that. There is nothing in the statute that allows SERTA to do any type of assessment or to require a community to participate. And I guess the natural question from there is, well, what if everyone else, what if there's some big regional project, right?
Yep.
And everyone else is participating and the vote on SERTA is, you know, every community is participating and 17 out of 18, what happens to the 18th community?
Right.
Well, we still don't have the power to make the 18th community do anything they don't want to do. The statute just doesn't, I mean, they can take that vote and you can say, well, that's all great and good, but we're not paying you that. And there's no repercussion to that. So I can't imagine you ever get to that point because the statute just isn't set up to allow the body to work that way.
So, thank you. The second question I had to do with how do we have safeguards, or can we project safeguards where SERTA isn't going to come back and ask for some sort of participation fee or base cost to offset in year 3 or year 4?
I think it's exactly the same issue. Sure, somebody within that group could again, 18 out of 19 could vote, hey, let's all start paying $1 million every year to CERTA. We could do more if everybody contributed $1 million. I mean, at the same time, the statute's the same as with the projects. That's all great. That vote can happen, and you can say, we're not doing that. I mean, we're just not. And there's just nothing in the legislation that causes you to have to make any type of payment. I mean,
And it may not, but at times it becomes, well, 18 out of 19, why aren't you guys? It becomes, when you start adding, then the pressure comes on. I think, if I think through projects, because we have a decent amount of projects in flight that have not been lifted off the ground yet, but if I think through 18 of 19 get together and decide they want to go forward with a project, if you're allocated a certain amount of money, $50 million, I don't know, I'm just coming up with something, and then it comes back that the cost is $70 million. So you're saying that there's an overrun, because it happens, right, of $20 million on whatever the execution is, that we could then decide, yeah, we participated, but we don't have to pay you for the overruns because we weren't overseeing it. That's the other question I would have. So I don't.
yeah, I think that is a great question, Amy. I think the issue, and where I don't think you get to that, is because when you're applying for these grants, you're having to demonstrate up front. Like, let's go back to the EPA, because that's the best example I have for you tonight. But like on the EPA, there's no match, but they're looking at 4 criteria to score these projects. You have to be shovel ready. So you have to demonstrate to them this project is ready to go. So in a shovel-ready environment where a match would be required, you're going to have to show them you have the money. The same is going to be true on ready. Like, they're not looking, the IEDC is not looking for speculative projects. Like, they want to know that if they give you this money, you can hit the ground running with it. And shovel-ready means a lot, but a lot of different things. But you're going to, if there is a project that we're taking forward, that money's gonna have to be there already, because you're gonna have to demonstrate to whoever's funding that you're ready to go with it. So when it comes to overruns on these projects, like back to the EPA grant, they have such tight control, they will transfer money for like our payment of this consultant on the $1 million planning grant. We have to demonstrate that we have submitted to them a disbursement request, much like you would on the projects here. They have completed all the information they need for the EPA to say, okay, yes, you're paying them, you're not paying them too much, because there's all the federal controls on that. The money comes to our account, and it has to be back out of our account within 5 days. Like, there's those constant checks. So we're not in the business of like overseeing a project where you would have an overrun. Like, CERTA's role right now is really about being the conduit to go get funds for projects. And then if you had overruns, you would have to figure that out here. But we're not in the business of like overseeing your project and saying, oh, by the way, we need 20 more million.
But from the regional perspective, if it's you're going to get money, so you're basically saying at that point, then, I can use a whole bunch of different, I guess.
The White River
Under
provision
ready,
plan
yeah.
would be something, right?
So you could hit a snag, right? That's something, you're shovel ready, and maybe there was something that was unforeseen, and so it's still, I mean, we see that often. You would still be responsible. I mean,
And I think
that's what I'm getting at.
And I think
at
that
point.
gets to the, how we bid or go after project scope, is having those ability to grow a project to meet your budget or reduce your project to meet a budget if you come in over budget. I think that's a little different than some of the process that we have to do on our highway projects, which are very restrictive on how we go out and circulate bids as opposed to an RFP, I think is different.
That is right. And also to the projects and overruns, because trust me, particularly in this climate, oh goodness, I get it, because the prices change almost on a daily basis. But I think, again, CERTA, I can't talk about what CERTA becomes in 5-10 years, but I can tell you for sure where we are right now. Like, overseeing these projects really isn't going to be, even on Ready 2.0, if you're familiar with that, different than even what happened a bit with Ready 1.0. IEDC is going to control all those funds, and the projects will be a direct conduit and privity with the IEDC, not with CERTA in the middle of it. CERTA's job really is to run the process to go out by the federal government and get the funds and kind of serve as the administrative step to help those funds come back into the communities for these projects. With IEDC, it's to go out, get the information, have the stakeholder meetings, determine which projects are most likely to go forward because we think it's something that the IEDC will fund. But I don't see CERTA stepping into the role of actually running the day-to-day projects like we all do on a community basis.
One last comment. I know that the term of the agreement says 5 years, and then you have to give 2 years written notice if you'd like to. That's the only thing I'm going to state, that the 5 years is a concern for me, just being that student. So that's all I have.
And just to verify from our conversation, CERTA has no taxing authority, can't set up its own taxing district, correct? Okay.
There's no funding source whatsoever in the statute.
I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion? Thank you for your
You
time.
already have it.
Thank you.
We're discussing.
Okay, without no other comments?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Aye. Meeting day.
Resolution CC 1004, 2023.2, a resolution of Hamilton County Council adopting a preliminary strategic economic development plan for the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority pursuant to Indiana Code 36.7.7. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Do any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Table business. Is there any item that we'd like to bring forward?
No, I would like to, actually, I'll bring forward item C to not be voted on, basically, so
Since,
to remove it from the,
so in essence,
Order.
because it's being handled via the item 10, I believe that's 10,
Motion to remove it from table.
yes. motion to remove.
I'll second that.
and that's being replaced with the resolution that we have coming forward to us later in the agenda. So without a motion, is there a motion? No motion? Seeing none, we'll remove that from the agenda. New business, do we have a motion to approve vendor claims?
So moved.
So,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Next item is the Propel US 31, Lisa Wall, HNTV.
Good evening. I'm actually not Lisa Wall, I'm Cassidy Hunter. Thank you so much for having me. I have a slide deck that I'd like to share while I talk. Are you amenable to that? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I think, Council, they checked, it's going to pop up on your screens in front of you. If it's not on, hey,
Screen is on.
is the screen on?
Here it is, we got it.
No.
Well, I do.
Steve's. Hit that button on the right-hand side, I think. This is an iPad?
Yeah. That one button. That was one button.
It's a-
Okay. You all got it? Yep.
This is not.
Is it not up?
Screw done.
Slide in there.
Here you go. Share with me. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Cassidy Hunter. Like I said, I'm the communications manager for the Propel US 31 South Transportation Study. I'm joined this evening by my colleague Aiden McCann. He is on the Propel Advisor team. In our brief time together this evening, I would like to talk to you about the work that's been done on the transportation study so far, bring you up to speed on where we are in the study process, and finally discuss next steps. So if you're not familiar, Propel is an NDOT initiative for transportation planning that uses collaborative planning and environment linkages studies to consider environmental, community, and economic goals early in the transportation planning process. Our study team has been engaging with residents and other stakeholders for well over a year to assess innovative ways to renovate the corridor while also prioritizing community needs. Public feedback is vital to the success of this study and will help to inform future potential transportation solutions for the next 20-plus years. The Pell study will result in a reasonable set of alternatives that will move forward as part of NDOT's regular call for projects, which is typically a 5-year timeline. However, we are looking at transportation improvements through 2045. So this map illustrates our study area, which extends from 276th Street here in Hamilton County to just south of the Eel River in Miami County. So far, I mentioned our efforts have focused largely on defining the why. Why are we evaluating potential improvements, and why are those improvements important to your communities? To get to the why, we asked for public input, and to date, we have engaged with more than 400 community members. We've held 6 public meetings, 22 office hours events, and have attended community events all across our study area to meet residents where they are. We've connected with business owners, farmers, school districts, emergency service providers, resource agencies, and the US 31 Coalition to understand the community's transportation needs and why they are important. We've received hundreds of public comments, and while they have focused on a variety of topics, 3 have been mentioned most frequently. So 63% of the comments related to mobility to, from, and across US 31. 11% focused on safety concerns, and another 10% talked about mobility along the corridor. And we also heard about other things like environmental considerations, economic development and redevelopment, and bike and pedestrian travel. So in response, our study team did several things. We contacted each of the 7 school districts in our study area to understand where bus routes intersected US 31. We had conversations with emergency management directors in each of our study counties to learn how fire, police, and ambulance interacted with the roadway. We met with local economic development organizations, Farm Bureau representatives, other local officials, county officials. We reviewed past plans, collected traffic data, and have spent significant time in the corridor to view these issues firsthand. All of that feedback was used to inform the transportation issues and needs for the study. So I'd like to go over those really quickly. So first, we found that there were more than 1,500 crashes in the study area from 2017 to 2021. And many of them were right angle and rear end collisions. So our desired outcome for this issue is to improve roadway safety by reducing the number and severity of those crashes. Second, there are 5 intersections in the study area that graded F in current or future traffic models. So our desired outcome here would be to reduce the delay at those 5 intersections. In our study area, there are 125 direct access points to US 31, and 91 of those access points do not meet NDOT's access management guidelines. So our desired outcome here is to improve local mobility and safety by reducing the number of potential conflict points and the number of traffic, or the amount of traffic that's moving at varying speeds. Next, mobility issues crossing the corridor were brought to our attention. So our desired outcome is to maintain or improve east-west mobility, and especially for school buses, emergency service providers, and agricultural equipment. Finally, we heard that mobility for long-distance passenger and freight trips was important. So our desired outcome here is to improve operations and maintain or improve operations along US 31 to enhance long-distance freight and passenger travel. This is a high-level look at the study schedule. We've just concluded the purpose and need milestone, which is the foundation for the alternatives development and evaluation process. So next, alternatives will be developed and evaluated based on how they address those identified needs and the desired outcomes. Potential alternatives that do not meet the purpose and need will be eliminated from further consideration. Now, at the beginning of this process, there are many potential alternatives that NDOT could consider. These solutions include a wide range of possibilities, and we call this starting point the universe of alternatives. It literally represents everything that is on the table and how they address the needs. Once we have the universe of alternatives, we will go through a number of screening processes due to the size and complexity of US 31 in our study area. As we move through that process, the number of alternatives will be reduced, yet the amount of detail associated with each alternative will increase. At each step along the way, the study team will engage the public and other stakeholders such that they know they have the opportunity to review and comment on these reports. Those opportunities will be announced via our study website, press releases, public notices, our social media channels, email blasts to stakeholders. At the end of, I mentioned this, at the end of each screening step, we will have a smaller number of alternatives. The additional detail associated with each of the alternatives will let us more closely and comparatively look at impacts and benefits and costs. So that is a very pared down version of a presentation that we gave at our public information meetings in June. I wanted to leave any time to answer any questions or address any comments before I'm finished. So thank you so much for your time, and if anyone has any questions, happy to take those.
I'll ask just one, but in your study, I know it's early on, but you've reviewed US 31 to a point where you have identified intersections that are problematic.
Correct.
How many of those are in Hamilton County? That's 276 in the whole quarter.
I feel like I'm going to verify this. I feel like there's one, and it's already being addressed.
Yep.
Thank you.
In our study corridor, so good evening, my name is Aiden McCann, as Cassidy mentioned. In our portion of US 31, our study area, Hamilton County, there's two major collectors that we're looking at, 276th Street, which is already being addressed under a separate project, and 296th Street. 296th Street is one of the roads that Cassidy mentioned where some of the intersecting roadways, there's delay waiting to turn onto the corridor. That was one of the intersections you mentioned. The safety there were crashes obviously, but it was, relatively speaking, compared to the other ones, the data we looked at, it was kind of on the lower end of that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, next item is Resolution CC 1101-2023.2, a resolution concerning the funding of Clay Township's pedestrian bridge over the White River connecting the Hazel Landing Park in Clay Township to the Fishers Heritage Park in Delaware Township. I believe there was questions about this, so we don't have a motion. We have a motion to.
Motion to approve for discussion
Do I
purposes.
have a second?
Second.
Yes, I would recommend tonight to have this tabled. There's 5 political subdivisions involved in this. It is Carmel, Clay Parks, Clay Township, Delaware Township, City Fishers, and Hamilton County. The financing of this is through Clay Township. They have a controlled project issues and limitations they're working through. So they're taking the lead on drafting the actual interlocal to make sure that doesn't run afoul for their bond issuance. That being said, it should be before you guys at your next meeting. So the Clay Township's attorney would request that you guys would table this for now until the next meeting.
Okay, and this is going to be capped at the 1.6?
Yes,
I believe.
1.6 is the most that Hamilton County would be given for this project, yes.
But this was also discussed, I know it was sent back, and in reading the minutes, this was the 1.6 we had requested, hopefully that it had been gone through the ARPA process, and I know there's 2.5 million sitting one place, 1.5 in another. So I think that's the reason I was under the impression, or the intention was to table it as a result of the funding, to not being sure where it was also coming
Yeah.
from. So,
Yes, absolutely. Okay, do I have a motion?
Do I withdraw mine
No,
or
you
change my
just-
motion to table?
We have a motion to table, we have a second. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is the Cicero,
going back then to ARPA for the actual discussion?
that's already been the request I've made.
Okay,
Yeah.
just making sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Let's
that.
go,
Okay,
yeah.
no.
If you sent an email, it was 5:30, I didn't see it, so.
Yeah. So, I sent a few, yeah. Well, Cicero interlocal agreement for public health grant funds. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Sir?
Good evening. Back again. It's very happy to be here again this evening. As we work through some of our projects that we'd already started with Westfield, Noblesville, and Sheridan, we were finally able to kind of get some paperwork going with Cicero, and Cicero would like to join in and put in at least 3 self-contained, environmentally controlled AED units out in some public locations around the parks or trails up in their area. So we're happy to hopefully help them by putting some money forwards to help them get this off the ground.
This is great. Are there other municipalities that are looking into it as well?
Well, we're still kind of working with, we actually had sent this out a while ago, so Cicero took a little time to get it back to us. I was actually waiting for corrective language, and they actually sent it back signed, so they were happy with our language. We're working on a different little project with Carmel, kind of on their fire and EMS side, to be more of a mobile AED with their e-bike program that they have, so they're kind of taking a unique approach. And then actually, in the meantime, we've also supplied through Jackson Township Fire and the town of Atlanta. They had a smaller request of 1 AED unit, so we were actually able to purchase that, and we just actually provided to them about a week or so ago. So we worked out through that. Other parts of this program includes certainly our schools, because it's kind of a school original related background. And happy to even report that even one of the requests that we're filling right now, working to, is to purchase AEDs that speak Spanish to Noblesville schools. So now that when we're gonna order them for them, we're also gonna order one for ourselves, so that way we actually have one ourselves as well that also speaks
Great.
Spanish. So it's a great program, we're really taking off.
Do you know where they plan to put these in Cicero?
I haven't gotten that information. I actually asked them back, and I believe the person had gone on vacation, so I hadn't got that answer back yet. So I'm sorry about that. But I will get those for you. I know Westfield has ordered their units, and they've sent us kind of some logos information, and it's kind of everything's in process and kind of waiting to be shipped and arrived and installed. But everything's starting to move forward now.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
No, this is a great program. I mean, it's going to save lives, so
Yes,
truly.
We love it too.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is Resolution CC 1101-2023.3, a resolution concerning reimbursing funds to be used for an affordable housing project.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right. Connor, do you want to, no, I think to Amy's earlier point, this is an item that's addressing that ARPA.
Yes, this resolution just states that the council agrees to reimburse up to the $5 million of ARPA funds that are designated towards affordable housing. Right now, I believe there's only been $1 million that has been reallocated from the affordable housing to another ARPA permitted project. The resolution just outlines that the council will identify a funding source when the time comes to reimburse that, to make sure it's a $5 million total. They said it's very broad. It gives you guys the entire discretion to where you want to take that funding and replace it from, and says that the ARPA committee will identify the project, which I believe there's a few of you on that committee too, so it'll be, once the project's been, I think, vetted to the point where the commissioners will bring it to the committee, and you guys will have us input at that point in time. But this is essentially just, like I said, reimburses the $5 million from a fund that you guys will identify at a future date.
And for clarification for the record, the reason why we were borrowing money from the housing designated funds for ARPA is because ARPA had a deadline. And we
Yes.
did not want funds going unused if, for appropriate projects. So when we had a project that came up in front of us that could have been ARPA related, we spent that money for that and borrowed from affordable housing in the event that a project didn't come through to fruition, so we would lose that money. So that's why we're doing this.
That is correct. The deadline is to have it allocated or identified for a project by the end of '24 and spent by the end of '26. So we have about a year until it has to be designated for that project, and you are correct, Councilwoman.
To clarify in your comment of, once there is a project, it'll go back to ARPA for discussion, it'll come here. I mean, ARPA, if they're allocating money, the project itself, though, we're gonna have to approve it if it goes above and beyond. So I just wanted to clarify that it will come to full council.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
so I know the ARPA committee has been involved with the conversations at a high level too, so it'll go from, to the ARPA committee, back to the council, and at that point, that's when you guys identify the funding source that replaces or reimburses however much money is taken out of the fund.
So on the ARPA committee, it's Councilor Beaver, I think you're you one.
Council Griffin.
Councilor Griffin and, or no, Councilor Nation and Councilor Mackey.
Yeah.
I filled in.
Yeah, you
Okay, you
filled
filled
in.
in.
I filled in.
So can one of you follow up to make sure that they're moving forward with rescheduling that ARPA committee?
Okay, I will do that.
And
Scheduling what?
scheduling the ARPA committee to reevaluate utilizing the ARPA dollars for this.
I think they reevaluated it the last meeting, if I read the minutes right.
Well, I think they read it, and I think everyone was copied on my response to that was, and Amy, she also shared that needed to be reevaluated.
There was an attempt by Tim to bring forth the 1.6, if I'm not mistaken, and that did not get discussed. It was kind of moved along. So
So-
that needs to be revisited, and then ultimately,
As we.
I don't think I understand what you're saying.
there was no decision made, if you will, on, I think the discussion had been, you presented at the last meeting, the 1.6, and you take it back to ARPA. That was brought up, and I know, Sue, you were out.
Yeah, I was out.
But then there was no discussion around utilizing ARPA funds. Based on the minutes that were provided, Tim did bring it forth, and it was basically one of those, well, we'll discuss it later kind of things.
Yeah.
So it was to go back and have the discussion.
Well, but we've already approved the 1 million to
Right.
be taken out for Cicero, or no.
Yeah.
for-
Right, we know that. This is a separate one that could come out of that, because we're.
And that's already been approved.
Right, I'm
Okay.
fully
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
What we're saying is the 1.6 was a discussion, just like we're a resolution up to the 5 million. We could leverage the 1.6 through that funding stream, through ARPA.
Yeah, if we decide.
If you
to fund
decided
it.
to do
If the
that,
ARPA
right.
committee
But I'm just
decides to bring
saying-
it forward to us, we still have to approve it again
Yeah.
Right,
after the ARPA
but the
committee.
conversation wasn't had of leveraging up to the 5 million that we've set aside for affordable housing. We're about to agree to the
I think it was,
resolution saying up to. So you could use that,
2.5, wasn't it?
yep, and we took 1 million away, so there's 4 in total.
Roughly
but
4 left.
1.5 and 2.5.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna call the question.
wasn't there several hundred thousand extracted from that fund to help pay for the Cicero?
Yeah, I can walk through the numbers. I think I had them written down.
I mean, I
Yeah,
wasn't
so
at
there's
that
a-
meeting, but the way I understand it, it was 600,000 left over from some drainage projects and another 200, 300,000.
But that was also based upon if they completed the conditions that were put upon them at that time.
Who, Cicero?
Yes, there was, I think, 3 to 4 conditions
Is
that were
that, is
placed
that
upon
a
them.
question?
Hmm?
Is that a question?
I don't know if they,
That's why it's not on.
I don't know if they fulfilled
They
that.
haven't fulfilled those, they have until November 31st.
Everything's up in the air, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Good
the
enough.
time limit
I
on these
understand.
dollars, yeah. So, all right, with that,
No, I have a question though. Connor, the item 1 says when the county identifies, shouldn't it say when the county approves an affordable housing project?
It should say
It
approved.
says identifies. So shouldn't it say when the county approves the affordable housing project? Why would we go ahead and commit to something just based on identification as opposed to approval?
That is a good point, Councilman, and we can, if you guys would like, we could have it approved subject to legal form review, and you know, between myself and Jeter, we can take that and say that once the county's
We
approved,
just,
identify and approved one.
For that, is your motion support that change? Council Mackey?
Yeah, yes, and I'm just reading that too, that,
because it
Yeah.
implies that we're not approving it. To Amy's
When-
point earlier, we need to approve the project. It's going to have to come before
Right,
council.
so-
It's just identified, we're committing to funding something that's identified as opposed to approved.
yep.
Chrissy,
That
did you
works.
see this one before? Did this one get sent with you to Mr. Jeter? Did this get sent to you ahead?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just a clerical error.
I agree with Mark.
I agree
Yeah,
with that
it's
too.
changed.
You agree
I'm not
with
a
Mark
lawyer,
too,
but it
don't
looks
you,
like
Carl?
something.
Okay.
Everyone agrees.
That's fine.
How about the second? Is the second also?
Basically
I agree to the
say with
amendment.
the-
All right, so we have the motion and the second are agreed for that. Given that change, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Just to be
What are we
clear,
voting on?
subject to the change.
Change, subject to
That
the
says approved.
Oh, so we're gonna vote before we get the change?
Subject to,
Approved.
subject to that change, which is changing the language to approved. Counselor Jeter, can you work to get that?
It's
I
literally.
That's the way that works.
Well, you could theoretically
No money's moving anywhere.
Just amend it now.
Make the change. run
But we can't sign it tonight, so you're right. I mean,
No, we're just
sign it.
amending the.
Right, but you could just.
I'd just
know,
like
I
to get
just
that,
said
I'd
the
like to
word
get it signed
approved.
before the next ARPA committee.
Okay.
So, okay.
Why?
So that they have that
That-
agreement in place.
Yeah.
We have a motion, we have the approval to move forward with that.
That's crap.
Okay.
I'm saying it for the record. I just don't, that's fine.
All right. Next item is,
We didn't vote on it.
I don't.
all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. I'm
I
opposed.
thought we already did that.
We did not.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. I already called it. Okay, resolution, next item is the resolution, resolution CC 1101, 2023.4, resolution concerning the purchase of real estate for Hamilton County.
Motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mr. President, can I make a comment with regards to resolutions? Can we ensure that any resolution that's added to the agenda, I assume that they're just being haphazardly put, can those please be sent to our council attorney? Any resolution, whether that's council, outside, any interlocals, those need to run through our council attorney. So I just make that request, that that information needs to go through them before it, so we have
So
buy-in from the.
parliamentarian, is that Councilor Nation?
No, I think that's appropriate.
So can we amend we'll amend the next, our work rules to show that?
I don't know if we have to amend the procedural rules. It's just
Procedural.
As a course of business, we should always send a copy to our attorney.
I agree. Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
Great. All right. Now we'll open the public hearing concerning additional appropriations. The first items are from Fund 1000 County General. First item is auditor transfer for
So
$1,500.
moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is Commissioners 144 Amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Buildings and ground transfer for $20,000.
so moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have ISS transfer for $40,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an emergency management transfer for $4,522.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sheriff 144 Amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next one's Fund 1053, Hamilton County Soil, HHW transfer for $23,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have Fund 1122, Project Income Transfer, $51,130.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next item is the Fund 1127 requesting $1,735,000 amount, which is from the amount available of $2,551,857.98.
So moved.
Second, any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Fund 1138, Hume Capital Development, requesting $450,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fund 1148, Council on Alcohol and Other Drugs, transfer of $15,000.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fund 1176, 1173 MVH, restricted transfer of $715,649.35.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is Fund 1216, Auditors Ineligible Homestead, transfer of $18,585.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have Fund 1217, County Elected Officials Training, requesting $500,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Fund 4508, 2018 HCRC Lit Revenue Bond Proceeds Funding, requesting $21,542.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Fund 4821, Go Bond Series 2023 appropriation of $5,180,000, ordinance CC 1101-2023B.
So moved.
Second.
Let's see what he's got to say about that.
This is we moved it from 10 million to the 5
To the
million.
five, yeah.
That's what this is, the item that we did not.
Good evening, Council. Zach Klutz with Capwell. It was all moving so quickly and nicely. Sorry to delay.
Good evening.
And then you showed up.
I know, terrible. As you recall, this body adopted ordinance CC 0906-2023A, which is a bond ordinance approving the issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $10 million for a variety of proposed projects. At the time, council was open to issuing bonds to fund projects, but the project list wasn't yet, in your mind, set and determined, so you moved to adopt the bond ordinance, but kind of through an amendment or withheld the appropriation language within the bond ordinance, such that when the bonds were issued, we would come back for the appropriation of the bond proceeds. Since that time, the bonds were sold in early October, and we closed on those October 26th. It was our understanding, between the time the bond ordinance was adopted and the bond sale, we were told that at this time the council just wanted to fund one project, and that was the 191st Street interlocal agreement with Westfield and their funding obligation of $5 million. So the bonds that were issued were $5,125,000. There was a premium on that, so the bond proceeds that were received by the treasurer are in the amount of $5,149,533.85. And so that's what we are seeking to have appropriated, so that money can be moved towards the project and issuance cost.
I got a motion and a second.
Well, we'll have to probably amend it to the revised number. What was that again? 5,149,000 and what?
$533.85.
533.
When we published notice of the additional appropriation, we knew it would be around that amount, so we just put an amount not to exceed $5,180,000, knowing that we couldn't under that.
For the motion and the second, are you okay with that revision?
Zach, could you tell me what the issuance cost actually is, please?
Yes. $149,533.85. That constitutes the Bank of New York Mellon as paying agent, S&P for the rating agency, local council fees, the municipal advisor, and bond counsel.
149, 539, is that right?
533.
533?
$149,533.85 on the closing memo prepared by Barry.
Thank you.
Just question, how much would that have changed if we went to the full 10 million, had we had a full list of projects to work on?
Negligible at best.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing that, we have a motion, the motion, who put forward?
It was
the
mine,
motion?
right?
Yours, and you were comfortable with that change? Who had the second?
Second.
And you're also?
Yes.
All right, seeing that, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 2024-144 amendments change that have occurred since budget hearings.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item, all right, we're in the grant appropriation transfers.
Motion to combine M1 and 2.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve items 1 and 2.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and with that, I'll close the public hearing and move on to announcements. Sheriff,
I got one thing, Ken.
can we do that after, you want to do it right now? Sheriff, go ahead.
Senior citizens came to us, they did the paperwork, wasn't filled out, we tabled it. I've been in contact with Jennifer in the auditor's office, who works in the grant administration. They got a meeting set up with people from senior citizens, we're going to send her out, see what their needs are, and if she can identify any grants that might be available. So that's kind of a work in progress.
That's good.
We're still moving forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks.
All right, Sheriff,
I don't have anything to do. Thank you.
Council Attorney,
Cheater.
Jeter.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Auditor.
I have a couple things. First, due to our cutover for the new financial system, we are asking that you cancel your December 28th meeting for encumbrances.
Anyone have an issue with that? Okay,
So it's good?
then we're good.
And then secondly, we had a transfer from Jeff Jellison up corner, and it was inadvertently left off. So we're asking that you transfer $21,000 from his professional services line to his machinery and equipment line.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do we have to add it, or is it fine without a motion?
So the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? So on the tabling of,
Not for profit? Yeah.
do we just
Leave it for right now.
If it hasn't happened by the end of the year, then let's just drop it.
And they can come
We'll
back
pick it
if
up
need be.
next year as an additional.
well,
offering.
it's gonna be, it's already in the budget.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
So
it's already in the budget?
you don't want an agreement to go out with that. It'll still say, because there
I
is
didn't
no agreement.
Thank
I
you.
thought that
I didn't think they were
yeah,
approved.
I thought we didn't approve
It was
that.
tabled.
It was tabled.
Oh, so it stayed in the budget.
That's right. It's tabled.
So it stayed in the
it's
budget.
tabled. Just leave, if
But
that's
you
easy.
Leave it.
recommended not approving and then retable it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I have $30,000 difference.
Can we,
So what Don wants to do is just leave it.
Just leave it, no agreement or anything, it'll just set in a line item, and then if something comes up in the future, that's there. If the
Okay.
commissioners haven't spent
Okay,
it.
so it's the.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items? All right, with that, so we are adjourned.